Hi, I'm Sydney Sitton. I'm a general study major here at East Tennessee State University, and my presentation for CDST 2200 Section 903 will be on the process of making homemade lasagna from scratch. The lasagna will be accompanied by garlic bread. To get us started with making this hearty, filling dish, I'm going to inform you about some tools that we'll be needing throughout the preparation of our ingredients. We're going to need a stand mixer with a noodle hook, measuring tools, a spatula, a rolling pin, and some wax paper. In order to cook our ingredients, we'll need a variety of different pans for preparation. This variety will consist of 2 nonstick frying pans, a casserole dish, a meat strainer or colander, a cookie sheet, and a noodle cutter or a knife. One last very important machine in cooking this delicious lasagna is of course going to be the oven. You've got a small portion of leeway in how you'd like to set your oven. I prefer to set mine to 350 degrees Fahrenheit and let my dish cook for 30 to 40 minutes. If you raise the temperature, lower the cooking time, and vice versa. Now we're going to get into our ingredients for our made from scratch noodles. We're going to use 4.5 cups of all-purpose flour, 6 large eggs, a teaspoon of salt, and 6 teaspoons of water. You should follow this noodle recipe exactly to avoid problems with your noodle dough. Finally, we're going to get into getting our noodles. First, we're going to combine all of our dry ingredients in the stand mixer with the noodle hook attached. You should set the mixer to a medium speed. Next, add all of the wet ingredients. Let them combine to form the dough. Once finished, cover a dry surface with flour and set your dough on the surface. The next step is to knead the dough for approximately 5 minutes. This allows the ingredients to continue mixing, and the process will also add strength to the bond of the ingredients so the dough doesn't fall apart. After kneading the dough, allow it to relax for approximately 30 minutes so the yeast in the flour will activate. Now it's time to roll out the noodle dough. For this step, you should recoat the dry surface with flour. It's important to use flour on the surface because the dough will stick to it as it warms up. Use your rolling pin in order to acquire the desired thickness or thinness of your noodles. To cut the noodles, use the noodle cutter or a knife. You should use a noodle cutter if you want the right style of the frilly edges like the lasagna noodles that are in the store. With this recipe, I prefer to cut my noodles into long rectangles. The great aspect of this dish is that you don't have to cook your noodles before laying them in your final dish. My favorite part, cooking the meat. I use about 2 pounds of ground beef for this recipe. I prefer to season the meat with salt and pepper. Chop the meat up in a frying pan on medium heat so that it can brown. Throughout, add desired seasonings. On a healthier note, we're going to start to gather the vegetables for the dish. I prefer to use tomatoes, mushrooms, onions, bell peppers, jalapeno peppers, a variety of squash, and black olives. With this dish, you can add or leave out any vegetables that you'd like. After I prepare the meat and vegetables for the dish, I like to strain them of any excess grease or cooking oil. I just do so that when I put together my lasagna, it's not a soupy mess. With the meat, I prefer to leave a small amount of grease so that the noodles are saturated and nothing becomes dried out while cooking. Next, we're going to look at cheese, definitely the glue that keeps this recipe together. With this part of the recipe, you've got a lot of variety to work with. I prefer to use shredded or grated cheese. I use sharp cheddar or mozzarella, or both. I've also heard of several people putting cottage cheese in this dish. It's all about what you want to taste here. Now we're going to prepare the vegetables. This is where the second frying pan will come into play. You can also use the same pan that you cooked the meat in if you'd like to give your vegetables a heartier flavor. You should brown the vegetables and then combine them with your meat. How you decide to prepare your vegetables is another aspect of this recipe that you can have a lot of fun with. From my experience, the flavors that you get out of vegetables is all in how you cook them. You can fry, grill, roast, or bake them. You could also try cooking them in the same pan as your meat for more flavor. A very important aspect of all dishes is seasoning. Adding one spice could change the entire dish. I season both the vegetables and the meat separately. I use oregano, thyme, salt, garlic salt, and pepper. While seasoning, you should decide what you want to taste and pick spices to bring those specific flavors out. Now that all different aspects of this lasagna are prepared, we can start to put our dish together. First, you should coat your pan with cooking spray to ensure that nothing sticks to the bottom of the pan. The first layer will be noodles and the next will be the meat and the vegetables. You should alternate between layers and top with cheese. Put it in the oven and remember to set your timer. Now that we've got the lasagna cooking, we're going to start with the garlic bread. I use a store-bought loaf of French bread, but you can use the bread of your choice. Cut your loaf into pieces that are an inch to an inch and a half thick. After you're done cutting the bread, you should place them on a cookie sheet. With this, spacing is important. Next, you're going to apply butter to your bread slices with a knife. Be careful to not put too much or too little butter. You don't want to make the middle of your bread soggy and also don't want everything super burnt. Lastly, apply garlic salt to your bread pieces. Put this cookie sheet in the oven on low broil and set your timer for 7 minutes. Now that all areas of this dish are complete, take both the bread and lasagna out of the oven and place them on the kitchen table. Now that you've worked hard, you should enjoy this delicious dish that you've created. I hope you enjoy this recipe. Bye.